Hello everyone, this is Muse Kastanovich with The Absolute Sound, and today I'm reviewing the Dan D'Agostino Pendulum Integrated Amp. Dan D'Agostino Master Audio Systems is the company belonging to the man who was founder, CEO, and chief designer of KRELL until 2009. They mostly manufacture megabuck electronics like preamps, power amps, and integrated amps, which sell for up to $385,000. So the Pendulum is their new most affordable amp at $18,000 base or $22,500 as reviewed with both options, and capable of 120 watts per channel. The audiophile's quest to get great sound at an affordable price. From one perspective, there can be two different approaches to this. Similar to the big fish in a little pond versus little fish in the big pond dichotomy, these approaches are the converse of each other. One is to purchase the most expensive flagship product from a company that is known for making great sounding, reasonably priced gear, though even many of those companies have been including a line of much pricier equipment in recent years. The other approach is to purchase one of the least expensive products from a company that is known for making very expensive, amazing sounding equipment. This is where the Pendulum falls. Handmade in their facility in Arizona, USA, it benefits from company infrastructure, design talent, trickle-down technology, etc., which are normally geared towards statement level or upper-end masterpieces. I like the name Pendulum, actually. It relates to music well. It can swing between hard and soft, loud and quiet, complex and simple, bass and treble. The attractive aesthetic of this amp is similar to D'Agostino's other offerings, with a round rose gold, one of my favorite colors, porthole meter display reminiscent of steampunk or nautical designs, and smaller round accents on the two front panel knobs. The display does show multiple pieces of info, but they are small and hard to see from a listening seat more than 4 feet away from it. I would have preferred, particularly when streaming from optional digital module, a sizable 6 or 7 inch rectangular display with track info, artist, bit rate, and cover art visible from the listening seat. I wanted to mention that the Absolute Sound has a YouTube video in the Michael Fremer Reports series of the Wilson Audio Sabrina V introduction presentation from July 31st. Wilson chose the D'Agostino Pendulum Integrated Amp for the demo for their new speaker model. I think this is significant as they wanted to make the best impression for many audio industry pros who were there listening, so they would only choose something they know has impressive sound. Doing some listening to the Pendulum myself after break-in, I found I needed the right cables to pair with it. I was using Shunyata Theta bi-wire speaker cables and a Theta power cord. With the AudioQuest Yukon balanced interconnects, the mid-treble was too zippy. So I changed to AudioQuest Mackenzie here, and then the treble was better balanced with other frequencies. Then I tried the Shunyata Theta interconnects and really liked some things they were doing. Though the treble was not mellow enough with the Shunyata, I preferred the greater detail. Treble balance is also recording dependent, of course. On Steve Reich Quartet, attack and decay of notes were fantastic, and that was on Tidal 2496. As well as microdynamics and bass agility. The incredibly rich and enveloping reverb on this album was so enjoyable. There was that nearly magical awareness of metal bars vibrating on the metallophone, and a sense of the size of the room and the spacing of the musicians. I got a feeling that all this was slightly less than what I get with my reference amps, the Stamina, which are purest single-ended Class A MOSFET. So then I did some direct comparisons for hearing the differences in their sounds. Listening to Yes, Shoot High, Aim Low, off of Big Generator, on Qobuz, $24.96. The Pendulum had a touch more mid and upper treble than the Stamina, and sound was a touch less natural, too sharp-edged and breathy. Everything sounded exciting, it had a good wow factor, but it was too much like Kodachrome. The Pendulum was nice and dynamic, but the soundstage was less deep and the space was a little smaller. Then, realizing the frequency balance needed a bit more tweaking, I changed back to the AudioQuest Mackenzie for interconnect and changed to AudioQuest NRG Z3 for power chord. With the Blade Runner soundtrack by Vangelis on Tidal 1644, again the Stamina had more soundstage depth and more holographic imaging. The solo saxophone was a bit more realistic sounding on the Stamina and simultaneously smoother, but closer this time on the Pendulum thanks to the more natural frequency balance from the mellower cables. The instruments were separated in space more with the SE amps, though the Pendulum did win out in terms of dynamics. We see the Pendulum is very dependent on associated cables. Don't think of it like a delicate flower, rather more like a high-performance sports car. You need the top-shelf oil, gas, tires, and spark plugs to get the very best out of it. Not to mention the road, which I would make the metaphor that it's the power conditioner and associated power cable. I used an AudioQuest Niagara 3000 and AudioQuest Blizzard for those. With all the cables dialed in, I have to say the suspicions I had all along are verified, that this amp has a luxurious and exciting sound which gives plenty of long-term listening satisfaction. Its sound did not better my single-ended Class A amps, but it plays in the same league, which is saying a lot. I wanted to compare it with another integrated amp, this time the new Cambridge Audio EXA 100. Sure, it sells for less than 1/6 of the price of the Pendulum, but I've confirmed it can compete sonically with other amps twice its price. Well, this time it was the Pendulum that had more air and space. The D'Agostino amp had a richer palette of overtones and a larger soundstage. They both had the same excellent dynamics. The Pendulum won out in terms of timbral balance also. The EXA 100 sounded a touch threadbare by comparison on voices and individual instruments, and thus less realistic. So the Pendulum has a performance distinctly greater than the less pricey amp, though the attainable Cambridge EXA 100 does get closer to that level of sound than it has any right to. I felt around on the top of the amp after it was playing medium loud music. I never listened very loud. And it was not very warm. The vents in the top are small round holes, which would not be sufficient for Class A design at this power rating. It must be Class AB. So then I opened it up and found it is quite a complex design, with clever layout to fit everything inside this one chassis. The optional phono and digital modules were up on top, with connectors on the back panel. There is a JFET driver board mounted above the power amp board, and 3 pairs of output transistors per channel for a total of 12, made by onsemi, the descendant of Motorola's semiconductor business. Those are mounted to the relatively small heat sinks, but they are thermally coupled to the aluminum chassis, so the whole amp can dissipate heat. That's why I did not notice a lot of localized heat. Bill McKeegan, president of D'Agostino, assured me that all their gear is linear circuitry, no Class D. And indeed, that is what I found inside. There's a very fancy Bluetooth remote with it, with a minimum of buttons, just one, plus turn left and right. It requires learning the sequence to get most of the functions. The display on the remote is nice, and the volume up-down action of the large dial is smooth and pleasing. However, it uses up the battery quickly if you don't turn it off after each listening session, and needs to be off when charging. I would have preferred a more typical remote with a large number of buttons for functionality, but certainly it is an attractive unit. There was the MC Phono stage installed, a $1,500 option, which I did not use. I've been digital only for many years. It does have many loading options and does use up the only pair of single-ended inputs when installed. I wish D'Agostino had included a second line level single-ended RCA jack input for those who have the phono module. There are 3 XLR pairs of balanced inputs. With the digital module installed, it also has an optical, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, and HDMI digital input, but no coaxial. There is a headphone jack and a balanced pair of preamp outs, in addition to the speaker binding posts. For specifications, we have 120 watts per channel at 8 ohms and 240 watts at 4. Input impedance is 1 megohm, higher than usual. Perhaps that had something to do with my challenges in cable matching. It is fairly solid at 35 pounds with its all-metal chassis, and a typical 17-inch wide chassis with typical height and depth for an integrated. It's available in either silver or black, and I would guess that kind of versatility, along with its rounded corners and lack of sharp pointy heat sinks on the outside, gives it a very high domestic acceptance factor. I hope you've enjoyed this review of the Dan D'Agostino Pendulum Integrated Amp, and we hope to see you again soon.